Let's start with something raw and honest. Almost every long-term couple eventually faces that moment when intimacy doesn't feel the same. The spark that once lit up the room seems dimmer, the excitement feels replaced with routine, and one partner quietly wonders, what happened to us? This is not just a relationship issue, it's a deep psychological shift that most people never talk about. In the beginning, everything feels electric. A new relationship triggers the brain's reward system, flooding it with dopamine and adrenaline. Every touch, every look, every kiss feels like a high. But here's the catch, the brain doesn't stay addicted to the same stimulus forever. What once felt thrilling becomes familiar, and what becomes familiar often loses its intensity. Now, let's bring this into the context of women in long-term relationships. Many men assume that when a woman pulls away sexually, it's because she has lost interest in them personally. But the truth is darker and far more complex. It's often not about the man himself, it's about how the dynamics of the relationship have shifted. Think about this, in the early days, a woman feels desired, pursued, and emotionally stimulated. But as time passes, the roles change. The thrill of being wanted turns into the predictability of being available. The brain, wired to seek novelty and excitement, begins to dull that original spark. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. The more we have of something, the less impact it has on us emotionally. Here's a real-life example. Imagine a couple married for 7 years. In the beginning, she craved his attention. She wanted his touch, his energy, his presence. But now, she knows exactly how he kisses, how he touches, and even what days he's likely to initiate intimacy. There's no mystery left, no uncertainty, no psychological tension. And without that tension, desire quietly slips out the back door. This doesn't mean she doesn't love him. In fact, love and desire can live in completely different rooms of the brain. Love is about comfort, safety, and security. Desire is about risk, thrill, and the unknown. And here lies the paradox. The very stability that makes a relationship strong can be the same force that makes passion weak. But here's where it gets interesting. Not every couple falls into this trap. Some people unknowingly keep the mystery alive, by maintaining individuality, by surprising each other, and by refusing to let routine dictate every part of the relationship. The couples who thrive long-term are the ones who understand this hidden shift and consciously work against it. And that brings us to the next layer of dark psychology, something far more dangerous than routine. It's not just about predictability, it's about emotional neglect. Because when one partner stops feeling seen, heard, or valued, the desire doesn't just fade, it withers. Here's a harsh truth most people never see coming. When a woman starts losing interest in intimacy, it's rarely about sex alone. More often, it's about something deeper, something invisible. It's about emotional neglect. At the start of a relationship, emotions are overflowing. Long conversations late into the night, little compliments, playful touches, thoughtful surprises. She feels not just loved, but seen. But as years pass, life gets louder, work stress, bills, kids, routines. Slowly, the emotional connection that once fueled her desire begins to starve. And the scariest part? This happens quietly. No fights, no shouting, just a slow and silent withdrawal. Think about this, a woman doesn't wake up one day suddenly not in the mood. It's the accumulation of 100 small moments where she felt ignored, unheard, or unimportant. When he stopped noticing her new haircut. When he scrolled his phone instead of listening to her story. When his "I love you" became more like a daily checklist than a genuine feeling. Desire doesn't just vanish, it's drained, drop by drop, by emotional neglect. Psychologists describe this as the erosion of emotional intimacy. For women, sex is not just physical, it's deeply connected to how safe, valued, and emotionally close they feel to their partner. When that connection weakens, physical attraction doesn't stand a chance. She may still love him, she may still stay loyal, but the hunger for intimacy shrinks into silence. Here's a real-world example. Imagine Sarah and Daniel. Married for 10 years. In the beginning, Daniel showered Sarah with attention. But over time, stress from work consumed him. He wasn't cruel or unfaithful, he just became emotionally unavailable. Sarah, on the other hand, felt lonelier inside the relationship than she ever did when she was single. For her, intimacy stopped being about passion and started feeling like a chore. Not because she didn't love Daniel, but because her emotional needs were no longer being met. This is where the dark psychology comes in. When someone feels unseen in their own relationship, the mind begins to crave validation elsewhere, through attention, admiration, or even fantasy. It's not always about cheating, sometimes it's just about daydreaming of being truly wanted again. And once her mind associates her partner with neglect instead of excitement, sexual desire becomes the first casualty. But here's the kicker, many men don't even realize this shift is happening. They think, she's just tired, or it's just stress. They look for surface-level explanations while ignoring the deeper wound. By the time they notice, the intimacy gap feels like a canyon. So, if neglect is the silent killer, what feeds it? One of the biggest culprits is routine and predictability. When every day feels the same, the mind suffocates. And in relationships, suffocation doesn't show up as anger first, it shows up as boredom. Let's face it, human beings are wired for excitement. We crave new experiences, fresh challenges, and the thrill of the unknown. That's why the start of a relationship feels intoxicating. Every date is an adventure, every kiss feels unpredictable, and every late-night talk reveals something new. But over time, predictability creeps in, and what once felt thrilling now feels like a script on repeat. Here's the dark truth, the brain is designed to adapt. Psychologists call it habituation. The more familiar something becomes, the less stimulating it feels. That's why your favorite song eventually stops giving you chills. And in relationships, the same rule applies. When passion turns into routine, desire quietly slips away. For women especially, predictability can be a silent passion killer. Not because they don't love stability, but because the mind links intimacy with excitement. If life with a partner becomes all about bills, chores, and schedules, the bedroom energy suffers. It's not that she doesn't care about him anymore, it's that her brain no longer feels that spark of newness. Think about this scenario, Anna and Mark have been together for 8 years. Every Friday is movie night, every Saturday is grocery shopping, and intimacy happens on the same nights, in the same way, almost like clockwork. Mark thinks he's being reliable, but Anna feels like they are stuck on autopilot. Over time, she doesn't dread being with him, she just doesn't feel the thrill anymore. This is where many couples go wrong. They confuse comfort with chemistry. Comfort is knowing your partner is loyal and steady. Chemistry is feeling like your partner still has the power to surprise you, to spark curiosity, to make your heart race. The challenge is balancing both, and that's where most relationships fail. Here's the psychology behind it. The human brain thrives on novelty. When something is new, dopamine levels surge. When it's predictable, dopamine drops. That's why spontaneous moments, like a surprise date, an unexpected compliment, or a random adventure, often reignite desire more than planned gestures ever could. But routine doesn't just kill excitement, it creates a trap. Many men and women stay stuck in predictable patterns because they mistake routine for security. The problem is, passion doesn't live in security, it lives in the edge between comfort and risk. Without that edge, the relationship starts to feel more like a partnership of convenience than a romantic bond. And here's where the danger grows darker. When boredom sets in, people unconsciously start seeking stimulation elsewhere. It might be through social media validation, emotional fantasies, or even micro-flirting. Not because they want to leave their partner, but because their mind is desperate for something that feels alive again. So far, we've uncovered how the hidden shift, neglect, and routine chip away at intimacy. But beneath all of these lies another powerful force, a psychological tug-of-war that shapes the very foundation of desire, the power struggle between control, validation, and emotional distance. Here's something most couples never admit out loud: every relationship has a power dynamic. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's obvious, but it's always there. And when that balance of power shifts, desire can collapse almost overnight. In the beginning, relationships feel equal. Both partners chase, both give, both invest. But over time, one person often starts giving more while the other quietly pulls back. Maybe he assumes she'll always be there, so he stops putting in effort. Or maybe she begins to withhold affection as a way to test his love. Either way, the balance breaks, and intimacy suffers. Why? Because desire thrives in a space where there's a mix of closeness and distance. Too much control, and passion suffocates. Too much distance, and connection withers. It's a delicate balance. But when validation and control enter the equation, things get messy. Let's take an example. Imagine Rachel and David. In the early days, Rachel felt deeply desired. Every text, every touch made her feel wanted. But as time passed, David stopped chasing. He assumed she knew he loved her. When she didn't feel that validation anymore, she unconsciously began pulling away, creating emotional distance. The more distant she became, the more desperate David felt. Suddenly, he was the one chasing again, but now it didn't feel exciting, it felt needy. And nothing kills attraction faster than neediness. Psychologists explain this with the concept of attachment and control. When one partner holds the emotional power, deciding when intimacy happens, how much affection is given, or how connected the relationship feels, the other partner often feels trapped. And when someone feels trapped, their desire doesn't just fade, it rebels. Here's the darker layer: some people use sex as a weapon in this power game. Withholding intimacy becomes a way to control the other person. At first, it's subtle, "I'm tired," or "not tonight." But over time, it becomes a pattern. The partner seeking intimacy begins to feel rejected, while the partner withholding begins to feel powerful. But the truth? Both lose. Because instead of intimacy being an act of love, it becomes a tool of control. Now, let's look at validation. For many women, intimacy is tied to feeling desired, admired, and appreciated. If she no longer feels like her partner sees her as attractive, her mind starts shutting down sexually. On the flip side, if he starts begging for validation, it flips the power dynamic, and nothing feels less attractive than desperation. This cycle creates a widening gap, where love may still exist, but sexual chemistry burns out. The scary part: once this power struggle sets in, couples can stay stuck for years. They coexist, they raise kids, they share responsibilities, but the intimacy feels hollow. The relationship may look perfect from the outside, but behind closed doors, it's a desert. So, is it hopeless? Not at all. Because the truth is, couples who understand this psychology can break free. The solution lies not in chasing control or validation, but in rebuilding curiosity, respect, and emotional balance. And that leads us to the final, most hopeful chapter: how to reignite desire, break the cycle, and build lasting passion. Here's the light at the end of the tunnel: losing intimacy doesn't have to mean losing love. Desire may fade, but it can be reignited, if both partners are willing to break free from the silent patterns that kill passion. The first step is understanding that desire doesn't return by accident. It's not about waiting for the spark to magically come back. Desire has to be cultivated. Just like a fire, it needs oxygen, space, and fuel. Without these, it dies. So how do couples bring it back? It starts with emotional reconnect. Remember, for many women, intimacy is tied not just to physical attraction but to emotional closeness. This means putting effort into small, daily acts of attention, listening without distraction, giving genuine compliments, showing appreciation. It's not about grand gestures, it's about making her feel seen again. Second, break the curse of predictability. Routine is the enemy of passion, and spontaneity is the cure. Surprise date nights, unplanned adventures, even switching up the way you express affection can rewire the brain's reward system. When she doesn't always know what's coming, her mind re-engages. Desire thrives on curiosity. Third, reclaim individuality. One of the biggest mistakes couples make is losing themselves in the relationship. When you stop pursuing your own passions, goals, and growth, you become predictable, and predictability kills attraction. By maintaining individuality, you not only keep your own energy alive, but you also remind your partner that you're someone worth desiring, not just someone who's there. Fourth, rebuild sexual tension outside the bedroom. Flirting, teasing, playful touches, even simply making eye contact differently can reignite that spark. Intimacy shouldn't be reserved for certain times, it should be woven into daily life in subtle ways. But perhaps the most powerful tool is vulnerability. Honest conversations about needs, fears, and desires can be uncomfortable, but they create a deeper emotional bond. And when emotional safety returns, physical closeness often follows naturally. Here's a powerful story. Lisa and Tom were married for 12 years, and intimacy had almost disappeared. Instead of ignoring the problem, they decided to take action. They started having weekly connection talks, no phones, no distractions, just open sharing. They each planned one surprise activity a month, keeping the mystery alive. Slowly, Lisa began to feel seen again, and Tom felt desired again. Within months, their intimacy returned, not because of luck, but because they chose to actively rebuild it. The dark psychology of fading desire isn't a death sentence, it's a warning sign. It's a mirror showing couples where they've stopped investing. And the truth is, passion can last for decades if both partners commit to keeping it alive. So if you've ever felt the spark dim in your relationship, remember this: love gives you safety, but desire gives you fire. Don't settle for one without the other. Choose both. Work for both. Because a relationship with both is not just lasting, it's extraordinary.